Hello, my name is Matt and this is Pixel Burn, where I take a sarcastic look at some of the more important, interesting or irritating things to have happened in the week's gaming news. Starting with the news that a yearly franchise has a new iteration coming out. Wow, what a startling revelation, eh? Stop the bloody presses, there's a new Assassin's Creed game coming out. Called Assassin's Creed Syndicate, this one finally brings the throat stabbing and roof jumping antics to Victorian London, something I've been wanting the series to do since Assassin's Creed Brotherhood. Except when Brotherhood came out, I wasn't entirely sick to the back teeth of the whole Assassin's Creed formula. That and Assassin's Creed Unity hadn't yet mentally scarred an entire generation with glitches born from humanity's darkest nightmares. You might remember this latest installment was leaked back in December 2014, sporting the somewhat more grandiose title Assassin's Creed Victory. Perhaps Ubisoft thought that sounded a bit too final for their ongoing yearly franchise. Syndicate is a much more appropriate choice in that case, especially given its relation to the term syndication, meaning to sell something that'll be repeated ad nauseum. It's also a word of French origin, like so many words in the stolen mongrel hodgepodge that is the English language. Anyhow, enough with the etymology lesson. What does this installment offer in the way of new stuff to play with? Well, there's now a Batman style grappling hook you can use to scale buildings quickly or zipline between rooftops, which kinda defeats the purpose of one of the series' main elements, namely figuring out which parts of a massive building you could use to climb up it. No doubt there'll be some in-game explanation for why you can't just zip right to the top of Big Ben, like crumbling masonry or shoddy roof tiles. Ubisoft are also promising the ability to use environmental hazards, like these hanging barrels here, to take out unfortunate enemies, which is really just a twist on the gunpowder barrels from Assassin's Creed 3, the last Assassin's Creed game I actually played. The rest looks like more of the standard Ubisoft formula, climbing up tall buildings, synchronising viewpoints, taking over territories, blah blah blah. If you played Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, you've pretty much played them all. So why am I more interested in this installment than I was in Assassin's Creed Unity? By which of course I mean actually interested. Well, it's London, innit geez? Cobblestone streets, gas lamps, up the apples and pears and whatnot, although curiously for a game set a mere 20 years before the heyday of Jack the Ripper, all the footage Ubisoft have released so far is set during the day. Come on Ubisoft, where's the pea soup fog, so thick you have to fish it out of your lungs with a coat hanger? Still, at least they got the old horse-drawn hackney carriages in it, although judging by this footage it's less genteel and more GTA. Tonally, Syndicate also seems much more cynical than Unity was, and for once I'm not talking about the way Ubisoft continually milks the franchise. The promotional material for Unity was very idealistic, all red banners, revolution, liberté, égalité, fraternité und so weiter. Syndicate on the other hand appears much better suited to the mindset of your average Brit, like me. For starters, you're not playing as some idealistic, dispossessed French nobleman with a bleeding heart, but instead a swaggering Mockney wide boy called Jacob Fry. Along with his twin sister Evie, who is also a playable character, Jacob plans to take over London's seedy criminal underworld, unite all of its gangs into one giant super gang, and then overthrow the establishment. Somehow. All seemingly very noble, except, and maybe this is just me, but Jacob and Evie seem less like rough and tumble cockney freedom fighters and more like a cheeky Victorian version of the Cray twins. If the Crays were brother and sister, that is. After all, Jacob and Evie clearly enjoy stabbing people with knives, which is something the Crays did too. Well, one of them at least. All I'm saying is a brother and sister starting out with the best of intentions, uniting London's criminal underworld against tyranny, only to find they actually enjoy their newfound nefarious power could be an interesting story angle for the series. It would certainly add some actual moral ambiguity to the Assassin's Creed franchise, and it's not like Ubisoft are strangers to making good characters turn out to be evil shitbags. Just look at Far Cry 4 where, spoilers, your allies turn out to be just as bad as the main villain Pagan Min, who himself ends up being a surprisingly sympathetic character by the end of the game. Speaking of Evie Fry, as I mentioned earlier, she is actually a playable character. Yes, it appears Ubisoft finally found a way around that whole women characters are too difficult to create problem, that being their official reason for no playable women characters in Assassin's Creed Unity, although their argument wasn't entirely without merit. Women also feature amongst the game's antagonists, with one storyline villain revealed to be a gang boss called Bloody Nora. You'll also find women speckled among the regular low-life gang member enemies that you can stab, shoot, punch in the face, drop boxes on, trample with horses and generally beat 7 bells out of. Not that I in any way whatsoever condone violence towards women. All the ones I know could kick the fucking shit out of me. Nevertheless, and I'm calling it now, it'll inevitably kick up a fuss of hand-wringing moralising in the contemporary gaming press. Or as the Victorians would put it, a right old bubble around of tallywags from a bunch of moral mutton shunters that could make a stuffed bird laugh and make me want to smother a parrot until I'm as tight as a boiled owl. Assassin's Creed Syndicate is penciled in for release on October 23rd this year, assuming you even care anymore. Continuing on a theme of stuff that isn't really news, Konami once again proved themselves simultaneously clueless and malevolent this week by trying to censor free speech. Apologies if that sounds a tad sensationalist by the way, but there's really no other way to describe a spurious DMCA claim filed against a YouTuber for daring to criticise a large corporation. That YouTuber being one George Weidman, better known by the name Super Bunny Hop, whose video, Kojima vs Konami An Investigation, featured information he'd gleaned from an anonymous source within the company. According to Weidman's source, Konami CEO Kagemasa Kozuki reportedly hates Metal Gear Solid creator Hideo Kojima. Kojima being fired was just the tip of an iceberg of layoffs, and that some within the company believe Kagemasa has gone, and I quote, batshit crazy. This anonymous source also claimed Konami was shifting their focus to mobile games and gambling machines, in anticipation of an expected legalisation of domestic gambling in Japan later this year. Weidman's video is a strong piece of investigative journalism with thoroughly drawn conclusions and essential viewing for anyone with an interest in what's going on at Konami. So naturally Konami didn't want it around and figured they'd get it removed. This reaction is hardly surprising of course. In recent weeks Konami have continued running roughshod over Hideo Kojima's name and work by cancelling Silent Hills, removing all mention of Kojima from its website, and even completely withdrawing the Silent Hills PT demo. I don't just mean removing it from the PlayStation Store either. Konami have literally pulled it from their servers so it can never be downloaded again, even if you have it registered on your PlayStation account. Where it is now, nobody knows, probably buried on a remote Japanese mountainside. Thankfully, copies of it still exist in the wild, albeit forever confined to random PlayStation 4 hard drives around the globe. And if your PS4 is harbouring one of these fugitive copies, keep it secret. Keep it safe. Alright, calm your eyeball. Sauron, Ringmaker, Lord of Barad-dûr and Dark Lord of Middle-earth, wishes to clarify that he is not nor has ever been associated with Konami. There, you happy now? I told you I'm working on that. Back to the topic at hand, I want to emphasise that Konami didn't merely issue a Content ID claim. Those are 10 a penny, and while they are bloody annoying, I know this from personal experience, they're not the end of the world. This was an actual copyright strike against Weidman's channel however, 3 of which would mean a permanent termination of his YouTube account. So it's fortunate Weidman didn't have more than one video covering Konami featuring footage from their games, or they could have filed DMCAs against those ones too, putting him at or above the 3-strike limit. And Konami is more than petty enough to actually do that. Anyhow, before this turns into a litany of Konami's countless sins, there's a happy and surprising ending to this little story. Within several hours, the claim on Weidman's video was revoked, the video itself was reinstated, and his channel was back in good standing. So Konami obviously had a moment of clarity, realised the potential PR damage, and backed off, right? Well, no, because it wasn't Konami who removed the claim. It was actually YouTube themselves.
You must be kidding, aren't you?
Nope, I'm serious. YouTube revoked the claim.
You're lying!
Oh, Tommy Wiseau. If only I were. Nope, in a rare moment of actually getting off its bloody arse and doing something, YouTube themselves removed Konami's DMCA claim on Weidman's video because, get this, Konami didn't put a reason as to why Weidman's video infringed their copyright. That little detail only being what DMCA claims are actually for, of course. One other thing about DMCA claims is that as the person being subjected to a claim, Weidman was entitled to know which individual filed that claim. And the person who filed that claim on Konami's behalf was none other than Well, I'll let Super Bunny Hop tell you himself.
It was filed by a Japanese lawyer who was a high-ranking Konami executive. If they're still employed there, then that would mean an actual Japanese Konami executive was responsible for taking down my video, or at least someone working under their name.
Basically, Konami executives are so far up their own arse and so hell-bent on striking Kojima's name from history that they literally think they can just click their fingers and make stuff go away. Man, someone really needs to sit them all down and explain to them how the internet works. Continuing on the topic of people succeeding in spite of Konami, Japanese developer Koji Igarashi revealed his new Kickstarter this week for a spiritual successor to the Castlevania series, helpfully conveyed with this cheesily entertaining campaign video made by 2Player Productions, responsible for such documentaries as Minecraft: The Story of Mojang. It features Igarashi himself explaining his pitch while strutting around a castle, sitting in a big throne and turning into a cloud of bats. Also this bit where he tortures a man on a rack, something he'd probably also like to do to the Konami board of directors. The Kickstarter smashed its initial $500,000 target by reaching over $1 million within its first day, and as of this video has accrued over $2 million. And finally, the strongest evidence so far of the existence of Fallout 4 popped up this week on Destructoid. Apparently an artist who'd previously worked on the cinematics for Far Cry 4 has recently been working at Mirada Studios on a cinematic trailer for Fallout 4. Mirada Studios, for those of you who don't know, is a production studio set up by Guillermo del Toro in 2010. They made this video pitching his concept for the film Pacific Rim to Warner Brothers. Oh, whoop-de-doo, so someone put something on the LinkedIn profile. I can make a LinkedIn profile right now that says I'm working on Half-Life 3. Doesn't make it true. Although if a gaming news site covered my fake LinkedIn and Valve sent them a demand to pull the story, that would certainly make it seem more legitimate, no? Funnily enough, that's exactly what Mirada did with Destructoid. One of Mirada's representatives told Destructoid that they were somehow breaking a non-disclosure agreement, or NDA, and requested they pull the offending article immediately. Even though nobody at Destructoid had actually signed an NDA. In fact, the only NDA being broken was that of the person who thought putting Fallout 4 cinematic trailer on their public LinkedIn profile was a good idea. Needless to say, Destructoid did not retract the article. So I guess we can look forward to seeing Fallout 4 at E3 then. Some might say that spoils the surprise, but Bethesda have been so reticent about Fallout 4, I'm still amazed it actually bloody exists. If anything, this gives people something to look forward to. Plus it's not as if the entire trailer was leaked or anything, now that would spoil the surprise. And I'm still eagerly anticipating news about Dishonored 2 myself. Nothing against Fallout, I particularly love Fallout New Vegas, but my personal hope is to see something about Dishonored 2, which is as good an excuse as any to reinstall Dishonored, I suppose. I am somewhat overdue for a replay of that after all. That's all for this episode of Pixel Burn. If you liked it, then please do let me know by clicking the requisite button down below, and consider sharing it with your friends, family and Koji Igarashi as well. At the very least, I hope you found it tolerable. If you didn't like it, however, then I look forward to receiving your DMCA claim, Mr. Konami Executive. In the meantime, until next week, as always, you can go now.